Okay, I think we're recording. Great. So let's get started. Go ahead and tell me your name, your pronouns, and the city you were born in and the city you currently live in.
Sure. So my name is Taylar Colyar. I identify she, her, hers. I was born, I have a weird kind of story. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I actually came into the world. Family was only living there for a short period of time. And most of my roots, my family, both my mom and dad, were born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. Two of my siblings were also born there. I lived there until I was about 8. And then I was raised in Southern California, LA, Orange County area. So I currently live in the Bay Area, so San Francisco, Richmond, California. I'm sorry, I'm being disturbed by my son. River, I'm on the call.
Oh.
Daddy. Thank you. Please close the door on your way out. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
Working from home.
He's so cute. Yeah. You were at Atlanta and
yes. So I was born in Atlanta, but I was mostly raised in New Orleans, Louisiana in early childhood, then moved to Southern California, Los Angeles, Orange County. And now I currently live in the Bay Area, California. So Northern California, San Francisco area. I'm about 20, 30 minutes from San Francisco. And I live in the city of Richmond.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your childhood and what it was like growing up as a woman in your childhood town.
So, my childhood, it's so interesting. I don't really ever reflect on it a lot, but I have a lot of Southern roots. So my family, obviously, both my dad and mom were born and raised in Louisiana. And so there's strong, influences from that kind of region. In addition, we're a very Christian Baptist family. So a lot of traditions, a lot of kind of, social norms. Like, I don't really even know how to explain it, but, I don't know. I was always told that I had to go to school. For sure. I had to, get my degree. I had to get a job. A lot of my family members are in the healthcare space. And so I immediately looked to healthcare despite my own personal attraction to arts. And I was a dancer as a kid and all throughout high school, college, and even studied ballet in college and thought I would maybe major in that or minor in it. And, honestly, my family kept telling me, well, not necessarily, because I don't want to paint my family as if they were not supportive of me, because they are. But they would often make me think about how I was going to pay the bills doing dance and the lifestyle that I thought I wanted to have. And so they would often make a contrast like, okay, you want to do dance, there's not really a lot of money in that. And so towards the end of my kind of college career, I started looking at careers in healthcare. And so I ended up graduating with my degree in health sciences. So, which is like the equivalent of public health. So I, I would say that, my family is not, we don't have the most entrepreneurs, at least on my mom's side. On my dad's side, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, but they always had like a full-time job. So they like side hustlers. So this mentality of, having your own business and building your own wealth and not necessarily going down traditional pathways and pursuing careers that are more defined is rather new for me. And I had I'm still navigating that on my own without like the direct support of my family.
I always hear that too, like to have a job and to work on your passion. So I understand that. Was there any time you were really aware that you were a woman in like the workspace or even just as a child when it was very apparent that things were different for you?
All the time. So I have a younger brother, and like when he came into the world, it was like he was the prince and he was, just everything in our household as children was around catering to him, even when it came to like watching what we wanted to watch on TV. Like me and my sister loved SpongeBob, but basically we didn't have TV time until he was done watching TV.
Oh no.
But mind you, he's 7 years younger than me, and I had been the youngest child for 7 years. So I was like, what the heck? Like, who is this kid? Like, comes in and you know, even chores, like me and my sister had to do all the house chores, from maintaining the kitchen and the bathrooms and our rooms and laundry. My brother never had to do any of that. I don't even know if he knows how to do those things now that he's an adult, because he always had someone serving him, and that was really the role of women in our home. And even at that time, I knew that that just wasn't right, and it was wrong. And I knew that I did not want to live my life like that, and I knew that I didn't want to be in a long-term relationship like that.
That's awesome. I really like that. So let's talk a little bit about representation and what it means to you to be represented in your community, how you feel about your community being represented right now.
So, you know, representation is something that really matters to me. And, you know, speaking on the day job thing, I actually happen to have a full-time job, and I don't consider Sip Shop Eat to be my side hustle. I also consider it to be my full-time business as well, because, you know, as long as you see your side hustle as a side hustle, it'll always be that. So I try to put as much effort as I put into my full-time job into my business as well. But, you know, in terms of representation, you know, at my job and in my career, I've often been the only Black person. And so I think, you know, for me, I often struggle with imposter syndrome, feeling like I don't belong here, or that, you know, what I have to say is not important. And I've often had to catch myself from playing small in the workspace, in meetings, not sharing my opinion because I get scared and I don't want to use my voice because I don't think what I have to say is smart enough. And because I'm in healthcare, I'm often working with these people that are highly educated, you know, masters, doctorates, PhDs. And so I'm like, what am I doing here? And I have to, you know, constantly remind myself that I deserve to be here. And, you know, I do feel that because I am the only person of color, sometimes I may be chosen, you know, to show that, hey, look, we have diversity, you know what I mean? And, you know, while I love to represent, you know, for women and for Black women, especially, it's like, I'm so much more than that. And I think, you know, a part of it does come from me believing that first, but I know that there's a lot of, you know, just being the only person in the room is hard. It's hard to feel like you're valid, that your opinions are valid, that you're important, that you belong when you're the only person in the room. You know, for my colleagues who, you know, are, you know, predominantly white, there's 5 other of them in the room. So, you know, they feel comfortable. And even in our conversations and the way they approach situations and their resistance to things, I'm usually more go along, get along. Like, I'm just happy to be here kind of thing. And I have to check myself like, you know what? My colleague's not doing that. Why am I doing that? Oh, it's because, you know, they have certain privileges that I am not, you know, afforded. And I have to represent and show that I am somebody and I belong.
Yeah, I think that's so true. You seek a sort of comfort in having someone else in the room that at least resonates with you. But like when that's not there, it's even harder to speak up and even more apparent that you have imposter syndrome. And that's very true. Yeah. That's great. Okay, let's talk about your identity and what experiences come to mind when you think of your identity.
My identity is very spiritual. My entire walk, as I said, you know, as a child, my family is very Christian and Baptist, and I spent a lot of time in church as a kid. And, you know, I didn't really understand at the time, you know, what it all meant and what it was all about. And I spent a long period of time really identifying as like a church person and as a Christian, and that was it. Like that was who I am. And if whatever was going on didn't align with those values, then I didn't want to be a part of it. And it wasn't until I experienced a lot of pain in the church setting that I realized that, you know what, my identity is not necessarily in church or in a building or being a part of this church community. It's my relationship with God and creation, and being open to all of creation and all people from all walks of life. Whereas, and a lot of times when I was growing up, I would notice a lot of judgment from the church and from people in the church, and a lot of criticism and a lot of kind of ostracizing different people in the community, specifically people from the LGBTQ community. Like, I would hear family members talk about people from that community so badly. And I was just like, this is not God. Like, this is not spiritual. This is not what I like. And so at some point I had to separate myself from that and realize that, no, what I really am is a spiritual person. And I love God and I love the principles of the Bible, but I am not associated with the stigma of judgment and ostracizing people. I am open arms. I want to meet everybody. I want to know everybody. I think I've gotten that experience and gotten to know that side of my identity through my business. If it had not been for my business, I don't think I would have met as many people as I know and gotten to work with so many people from all different types of life and got to learn so many things about positivity and to really disrupt some of the lies that were embedded into me as a child. So, my identity is all about spirituality. It's all about learning. I love to learn. I love to meet people and just, being positive and taking the time to, like, because it's easy for anyone to say, yeah, I want to be positive. I'm positive and positive mindset, and I'm going to say my mantras and say my affirmations. But when it comes down to actually living life is messy. It's hard. Life is hard. Life is messy. Business is hard. Business is messy. And you don't always feel positive. When things aren't going the way that you envision, or you set goals and they don't happen, there's a lot of disappointment in that. And that's when you need to be positive the most, but that's when it's the most challenging. So for me, it's about really having these values and believing in the values and also acting, not just saying it, not just thinking about it, not just saying my mantras and not actually living it when I go to the grocery store and someone cuts me off. It's like letting them pass and still being myself and not letting that take me out of who I really am.
Right. I'm loving so much of what I'm hearing. Like, it's so relatable. Like, even with my religion, it's obviously different, but like there was so much judgment right away. And like, as I like got older and took it apart, I like separated myself from it and then went back to it for comfort, but like removed the judgment that comes with it. So that was really important for me. But yeah, I really loved all of what you just said.
And what I've learned as well, like now that you say that, is as we, the younger generation, set examples for our parents, they also, come along. Like, I love yoga, by the way. I do yoga every day. It's my goal to try to do it every single day. But there was a time when I was younger, I've gone to different churches, and one of the churches that I went to, like, they were like, no yoga, that is just horrible. And I thought, like, sometimes I feel like called to do it when I'm really stressed out or when I'm really overwhelmed. And I'm just like, why would people say not to do this positive practice that helps you maintain, like, your body feels so much better, and your mind and your emotions and the release you get from it? Like, why would they say not to do this? And that's like a part of the time where it made me really start to question a lot of the things. And now my mom does yoga. And just like, but me being that example to question things and challenge things and still live my truth despite what someone else says that I should be doing.
Yeah, it's so important to like take a step back so that they can see it. And then you're also setting an example for people who are younger than you. So I think that's really great. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
10 years. I see myself a full-time entrepreneur. I'm not having a full-time job at all, like not working for someone else, working for myself and working for, having multiple businesses, being a serial entrepreneur. in terms of where I live, I'm not positive where I want to live, but I know that I want to pursue real estate and have, multiple locations where I live and travel, and hopefully things won't be as bad in terms of traveling by then.
Yeah.
I see myself hopefully writing a book at some point. Let's see, what other things do I see for myself in 10 years? And really being just, I don't know how to articulate this exactly, but really embodying all the things that I already said, being positive and not allowing distractions in, and not allowing, the external and even sometimes internal, to be real, kind of lies and negativity shape my reality. To really be at a place where I'm completely zen, no matter what's going on, and I know how to respond to my emotions and still, move the needle in my own life. I'm continuing to learn at that point, that I honor the things that I like to do, my hobbies, and make time for them. By that time, my children will be much older. And so, of course, like getting into whatever they're into and supporting them.
That's awesome. So I'd love to hear about your experience starting your business and your passions, where they lie, and how you'd like to grow it and things like that.
Sure. So, my business. It's kind of something that I fell into. At the time, I moved to New York in 2016, and I moved there for a job, actually, in my healthcare field, and I did not like it. I was miserable. And before I had moved there, I actually had a business. It was an online store. It was called Consignment Couture, and I sold pre-loved vintage items. Some high-end, some just random cute clothes that people just didn't want anymore. And so I did that online, and I kind of put it on the back burner as my kind of career took off. And at some point I was just like, the reason why I started that when I was pregnant with my first child, because I was like, I don't want to have to work. I want to be able to be at home with my child and really have freedom, and not necessarily financial freedom, but just freedom to do what I wanted to do and not have to worry about getting up and clocking in and clocking out. And so I started that, and I put it on the back burner, and I was just really unhappy. And my partner at the time was like, you started this and you kind of just stopped working on it. Like, what's going on with that? Like, maybe you should start doing it again. And so I did. And I got a really big order. And I was like, well, maybe I was starting to think about maybe I really do want to do this instead of going to work every day, because I'm miserable. I hate it. I was not getting along with my boss. It was becoming a very volatile and strained situation, to the point where I was in a whole nother office. And I found myself spending a lot of time on my business while I was at work. And I just so happened to be pregnant with my second child, and I was going out on maternity leave. And when I left, I just kind of never came back. And I was like, and what I did was I started doing these pop-ups in New York, and I was just miserable. Even in that experience, I would come, new mom, just had my son. I'm lactating, so I have to breastfeed, I have to pump every 2 hours if he wasn't with me. And it was just like the markets and the events that I was doing were really, they didn't think about the vendors. They didn't think about the small businesses that were there. And I just felt like they provide the space, and many times they would provide the traffic, the people that came in, but there was no thought about chairs and tables and food. And it was like, you have a booth. If you didn't have someone there helping you, you have to just hope that someone next to you would kind of watch your things while you go look for something to eat. And it'd be cold, like it would rain for some outdoor events. And I was like, you know what, there's a way to reimagine this. There's a way to rethink this and really center on the vendors that are doing these events and essentially making them happen. And so that's when I thought about doing Sip Shop Eat. And we launched as this very small pop-up with like 15 vendors. And we did it, and I did it as a one-time event. And really I did it because I felt like I was spending so much money on all these pop-ups that I could just save up my money to host an event. And it was successful, and the vendors loved it. and they would ask, like, immediately after they asked, like, when are you doing it again? I was like, well, I really never thought about doing it again, but because I kept getting multiple people ask, I just decided to, make it a real thing. And at the time, it was still associated with my vintage brand. And I had, brands asking, like, well, why is this associated with? So I was just like, okay, you know what? I need to make this into its own thing. And that's exactly what I did. going on 4 years now, and it's not easy. It's still not hard. We're still completely focused on small businesses. And, with COVID-19 in 2020, had to put a lot of our in real life events on pause. We were only able to do one event. And, that was very humbling, and that was very sad, because it was like at a time where our business was finally at this point where it was like,
yeah.
Like I could maybe, my vision, my 10-year plan could be like a 3-year plan, like a full-time entrepreneur. And then, March 12th hit and everything was put on pause, and lockdowns and never ending lockdowns. And so we had to reimagine the pop-up. And so we launched the virtual pop-up, which is another great alternative to still discover small businesses. And we've even reimagined it since we launched it, and really tried to create content around small businesses and really drive these talented business owners, like traffic and awareness to these very talented small business owners. And in addition to that, we launched our SSE Entrepreneur Program, which is a mentorship and coaching program for small businesses who just need more help and support navigating their business. We strategize with entrepreneurs. We help them with their websites. We help them with their ads, just everything that goes into entrepreneurship. We also call in experts to speak to our members, and anything that supports small businesses. That's what we want to do. This year, we're looking forward to working with more contributors on our blog, be it like social bloggers, be it, YouTubers, people that do food blogs and food blogs, stylists, just really making it be a hub for all things food, style, and drinks. And that's exactly where we want to go with it, and bringing it more into a media company that is centered on small businesses and creatives.
That's amazing. Like just the culmination of such a big community. It just sounds like such a good place to go for resources and things that people would need as vendors and small businesses.
Thank you.
Yeah, like drawing on your experience of it, and then like creating something that works well for them as well as the consumers. That's just so amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to do.
That's awesome. I totally got that message. That's very beautifully done. How did the virtual one go? Like the virtual?
So the virtual event, it's interesting. Basically what we do is 30-day, well, we did before 2021, we did 30 days in our virtual pop-up. And essentially we list products from each brand. Some brands have multiple things. So, we have like different sections on our virtual pop-up website. So if your brand has food and I don't know, you sell like sage bundles. I'm just throwing random things out there. Headbands and scrunchies, whatever. Like we would list your products in all of the various categories as well as our main like marketplace hub, and just drive traffic to it on our website, on Instagram, social channels. And we also did paid ads to really drive people that love shopping online to the products. We also would do these kind of like vendor one-on-ones, like spotlights, and we would call it our virtual pop-up. And so on a selected date, we interview the entrepreneur behind the brand. They can also create a video that we would just post and share throughout our network. And so it's been a really great experience for the vendors, and as well as us. We've worked with people all over the country, and that has been really great because before it was all IRL and that was all our focus was on. But now that we get to work with people all over the country and hopefully at some point internationally, it's been great. And just getting to explore all these different businesses and offer, them the opportunity to reach our community as well. So it's been really amazing, and it's been a great experience. Now we do 90 days because the 30 days wasn't enough, I feel like, and we want to do more because we really are embedded into these brands. We are bringing on more contributors and partnering with bloggers and people that have their own platforms to actually try the products and share that they found it on our platform, and just drive more traffic to these brands all around.
That's amazing. That really sounds like such a beautiful community that you've created.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Oh, how do you practice self-care alongside all of this with your full-time job as well as your startup?
So, you know what? Self-care is something that's increasingly more important to me. I am in the middle of drafting a blog on self-care.
Oh, good.
It's funny that you ask about that, because before, when I was I think this is actually ties back to my childhood, because I come from a family of very hard workers, and I didn't necessarily see them putting self-care as a priority all the time. I mean, I see little things like, my mom would take a vacation, once a year. She would get her hair and her nails done, but I also feel like some of that stuff was vanity. And I also acknowledge that for myself as well. Like, I used to always get my nails done, always get my feet done. Like, it was more like, this is just supposed to look good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these are some of the things that I have to do for just my self-care. And for me, self-care is a daily practice. And I don't see, the vain portions of self-care as really self-care, even though that is important. It's more, I'm in therapy. I go to therapy once a week. That's self-care to me. I practice yoga every day. That is self-care to me. Try to drink water every day. Like, those are my little things that I do for self-care. And I actually have a calendar, my daily planner, that has a section dedicated for self-care. So it really makes you be intentional about what you're doing for self-care, and you can check off, you can write down what your plan is that day to practice self-care, and you check it off as you go. And it really helps you prioritize putting yourself first, because I've just learned that if you don't do that, you really cannot be effective in any other portion of your life. And for me, I have to wake up really early to get it all done. I'm so many different things in one day. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I have my, job that I'm at, 8 hours a day. And then after that, I have to eat, and it's a lot of juggling. And I often have to, pull myself back. And one of my goals for this year was like to not feel overwhelmed, not feel like I have too much on my plate. And so for me, it is actually on Saturdays and Sundays, it's all about family. It's all about maintaining my home and doing things I need to do around the house and not working. Because at one point, I would work around the clock. I mean, always on email, always on text, always by phone, always on Instagram. And I just had to create systems that allow me to really focus on not doing anything, not working at all, and just resting.
That's very, very healthy. I think my dad, he was like that too, where it was always just work, work, work. And he's also an entrepreneur, but at some point he just started like shutting it all off at some point. And he's like, it's family time right now. Like, I'm not looking at anything. I'm not doing anything. I'm just here. And yeah,
Right.
it's so important.
Yeah, I realized like my kids are gonna go off and be on their own before I know it. Like, I remember my son was like this small, and now he's turning 4 next week, and I'm like, so bad. So I just had to shut it down, shut the laptop down, shut the phone off, and I'll just like actually leave my phone in another area. And sometimes now, if my phone dies, I'm just like, good, it's dead. Like,
yeah. Yes, I like that. So just to wrap up, to talk about empowerment a little bit, how do you empower yourself and how do you empower your community? I think we've talked about how you empower your community a lot, but you can go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could talk about it more too. I mean, I love empowering my community, but to empower myself, I also think that that's very important. And I think that's a big part of self-care as well. I try to listen to podcasts every day. I'll try to listen to, or maybe not every day. Like, I'll switch my podcast up by the day. Some days it's different bloggers that are, very successful. I love the Tony Robbins podcast. He's a very positive force, and I know his methods are a little interesting, but I really like, the things that he has to say. And there's often like hacks on how to be more productive and how to prioritize self-care and how to find purpose in sometimes in some of the pain that you're going through, and how to like be a blessing to other people so that you can feel blessed. It's really about this kind of karmic deposits that we put out into the universe and allowing them to come back to you. I think that is extremely important. I also try to read a lot of books. They're mostly self-help books, but I also recently learned that fiction books grow your brain. And so I'm going to start getting to some fiction books this year. And I want to say that one of the biggest things that I did for my empowerment was late last year. I joined this community called With Honors. You may have heard of it. It's really growing rapidly through social media and Facebook and Instagram. And I have learned so much. I have learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about playing small, productivity, how to kind of growth hack my business, and just being in that space with other predominantly women has been so helpful. And to be able to just reach out to another woman within that network and be like, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel because I do. What are some resources that I can look into to do this? And you get like 15 people saying, hey, this is what you do. This is a great person to kind of get resources from and learn the blueprint of starting and promoting a successful YouTube channel. So that's what I do for my own personal self-empowerment. For others, anything that I learn, I try to pass it along. Number one, I think that is the key. I know a lot of times, especially, in entrepreneurship, you may see this or experience it. There's somebody that maybe you look up to and you reach out. I know I do. It's a little bit, but I reach out. I always try to reach out if I have a question. How do you grow your Instagram? How did you get this sponsor? How did you work with that partner? I reach out. And sometimes it's been really beneficial to me. And the person that I'm reaching out to is great. And, they think like me and they're willing to pass along the nuggets that they know. But sometimes you get people that won't respond at all, or don't feel like they should share their secrets, or don't feel like they should share, how they make their earrings. But I'm like, I want to pass that along. I want to share with people, because for me, I knew exactly what it was like to not have guidance and to be so lost in everything, whether it was in my career or whether it was in my business. And it was always the person who gave me the little tip, like, hey, you should dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Like, dress up when you come to work, be on time. Like, it was those people who told me little things along the way. And I was like, I still look up to one of my first career mentors and seeing how she was able to leverage negotiating her salary to get a higher pay, and the way she dressed and, how organized she was. I still take all those things into every portion of my life, and I try to share them with everyone else. Like, if someone reaches out to me, I think I'm pretty well known for this. Like, I usually respond. I usually will help somehow, some way. And if I can't, I will respond and say, hey, I can't do that right now, but hit me back in like 2 weeks or a month and I'll be able to do it. I'm always responsive. And then if I know of a resource, I share it with other people. Like, okay, With Honors, it's great. And sure, you have to pay a monthly fee to be a part of it. And maybe everybody in my network can't afford that, or maybe they don't want to pay for it, whatever the situation is. But I'm still saying, look, this is where I go for empowerment. This is where I go for hacks. This is a great YouTube channel that I look at, or this is a great blog that I've subscribed to. They give a lot of freebies away. You guys should sign up for it too. And whether or not people receive it or take it, it's really irrelevant. But for me, I have to share. Like, I have to share. Oh my God, look what I found, guys. You guys should try it too. That's my way of personally empowering others. And of course, my business is all about empowering other people and seeing other people grow. And it's been phenomenal to even watch the brands who started with us. And it was like their first time doing a pop-up, and now, their business is completely taken off. It's an amazing thing for me, and it's the most fulfilling. So for me, empowering is just who I am. I love to do it.
That's such a beautiful note to end on, especially because Global Girlhood's entire message is like sharing the mic and having like the ability to pass the mic to another person to share their knowledge of the world and things like that. So yeah, do you have anything else you want to share?
No, I just want to thank you so much for arranging this and organizing.
Of course,
You know,
I had
reaching
so
out
much
to
fun.
me. I don't take it lightly at all. You know, there's so many other women you could have interviewed, and I really appreciate you offering me this opportunity and interviewing me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, I'm gonna stop recording and then